welcome to How I News. My name is...
Hey, Vince, shut the up!
Oh yeah, I forgot. I got a job.
Hey man, you got a job.
If you don't know, this is the show that takes the news, adds some context, a teaspoon of math, to that hot jambalaya we call the truth.
You can't handle the truth!
Well, I think you can. I believe not only that you can handle the truth, but you need it. So I'm here to give it to you, hot, spicy, respectfully, and a little bit nicely.
Bam, bam.
So with that, let's get to the leading the way. Let's talk about this. Texas, other red states leading in the U.S. in wind, solar. Texas? Texas? Fox. Now, you got to always check out what conservative people are talking about. Conservative, the states that lead the country in wind and solar energy. That's very important. This is why you can't write off news sources. Fox Business. Look, Fox is owned by the Murdoch family. The Murdoch family has a global empire of media properties. They know how to run media companies. But you can't run media companies on French fries alone. There has to be some beef.
Where's the beef?
There has to be some steak. There has to be something of substance. And this is an incredibly substantive story about, let's just look at this, the states that are leading the way. Let's talk about this. Texas, other red states leading in the U.S. in wind, solar. Texas? Texas? Solar, energy, wind, solar. This is actually a very important story. This goes back to the story I was talking about earlier about Republicans and how they're talking about climate change is very different than what they're doing about climate change.
The earth will end only when God declares it's time to be over. Man will not destroy this earth. This earth will not be destroyed by a flood. When it comes to addressing climate change, let's take action. But let's be smart and pragmatic about it. We should focus on realistic solutions to prepare for the future.
Most experts believe by 2083, in 70 years, the benefits of climate change will still outweigh the harms.
We're going to still see the oceans rise, temperatures are going to increase, Miami's going to be underwater. They continue to burn fossil fuels. We're still going to have a water problem. We're still going to have droughts. We're still going to have severe weather all around the globe.
You don't really expect to abolish the EPA, do you?
Well, there are a number of federal environmental laws that we will still need to enforce. But my belief is the EPA in its current form cannot be reformed.
The earth is warming, and I think that humans contribute greatly to that warming, and we've got to, I think, be more astute about the research.
And they're moving actively toward renewables, but they're not talking about it. They're just doing it. Quiet.
Playing it a little bit safe to try to get one out of their belt, then trying something harder. Jake wants this Ollie sub 20. Look at that!
The report concludes the country's ability to produce electricity from sunlight and wind can grow fast enough to support the Biden administration's goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? Joe Biden should be like,
Yes! Yes! Oh, yeah! Can you feel that, buddy? Huh? 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 I have exorcised the demons.
this is huge. Red states like Texas, Oklahoma, and others are leading the United States in generating wind and solar, according to new findings. Climate Central's Weather Power Year in Review 2020 indicates that the nation's capacity to generate carbon-free energy from solar and wind grew last year to more than 238 gigawatts, up from 13 gigawatts in 2021. Wow. While California and Florida were the largest producers of solar power, it was Texas that led the nation in both solar and wind power. That's very, very, very big that it's leading the nation. That Florida, California, and Texas are leading the nation in renewables or in producers of solar power. And Texas is leading even more. This is why you have to read all the sources. Everybody's like, oh, I don't read Fox because they're evil. And it's like, yeah, you're only getting half the story if you're not reading conservative sources. You have to read, even if you don't agree with them, you have to know what they're talking about. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is why you have to read conservative sources. This is why you have to read Fox Business. This is why you have to read Fox News, because if you don't, you'll think that in blue states, Democrats really run states, they're the ones leading the energy revolution, but they're not. Actually, it's red states leading it, but you wouldn't know it unless you read. So let's see. First of all, Texas saw the largest increases in megawatt capacity of solar. But let's just news a little. Let's news, because what are they talking about here, right?
It's hard to keep up with the news these days, but not anymore. Introducing you to paulinslist.org. That's paulinslist.org, your digital newsstand. Just like a newsstand, at paulinslist.org, you can see all of your publications in one place. And just like the newsstand, you can flip through all of the headlines of all of today's articles in an easy-to-manage format. On top of that, you can save the articles you want to read for later. And on top of that, we do not use artificial intelligence to tell you what you want. We let you decide for yourself. Right now, we have some of the top financial publications out, but we're adding new publications all the time. So if you're serious about knowing, if you're serious about being a citizen, if being ignorant is your pet peeve, check out paulinslist.org. That's paulinslist.org. To really understand this story, you kind of have to understand a little bit about electricity. So let's talk about it. Watts. When you talk about watts, you're talking about small household appliances. You're talking about light bulbs, toasters, that sort of thing. That's what's measured in watts. When you talk about kilowatts, you're talking about large household appliances, refrigerators, freezers, heaters, that sort of thing. Big appliances. When you're talking about megawatts, you're talking about houses. Matter of fact, you're talking about anywhere between 400 to 900 houses, depending on how much electricity each house uses. And finally, when you're talking about gigawatts, you're talking about 750,000 homes per gigawatt. So when you talk about gigawatts, you're starting to talk about states. So that's how it works. Watts, toasters, kilowatts, refrigerators, freezers, megawatts, neighborhoods, gigawatts, large groups of neighborhoods, or states. That's pretty much it.
First of all, let's see how many homes, number of homes. 140 million houses. Shout out to America. It's going up every year too. That was 4 years ago or so. So let's just say it's 145 million. How many households can 1 gigawatt power? 1 gigawatt is enough energy to power about 750,000 homes. 1 gigawatt. Now, how many gigawatts did it say were being produced? 238 gigawatts. So how many gigawatts? Let's just see if this makes sense, because the number seems really, I don't know, that number seems off to me. And you got to understand, just because Google says it doesn't mean, and that's why it doesn't seem real to me. Google says it, so that means we have 193,000. Every house in America right now should be powered by renewables. Because if you look at what this article says, what does this article say? This article says solar and wind power grew to 238 gigawatts. Well, if solar and wind alone grew to 238 gigawatts, then that means that we should be completely full. So I don't know if that doesn't seem to make sense to me. That, we're at 238 and it takes 193,000 to power every home. Now I know we have other things to power in America besides that. So let's look at, I think there's a bigger number to look at, because maybe it is pouring every home right now, but maybe homes aren't the biggest consumers of power. Let's just see how much power in gigawatts is used per year in the US. Ooh. Jeez, all right. So this is from the EIA. So this is the Energy Information Authority of the United States government. In 2021, about 4,108 billion kilowatt hours, or 4.11 trillion kilowatt hours of electricity were generated at utility scale electricity generation facilities in the United States. About 61% of this electricity generation was from fossil fuels, coal, natural gas, petroleum, and other gases. So that's the actual how many gigawatt hours does the U.S. use? What's the relationship between gigawatt hours and kilowatts? Okay, so let's talk about a thing real quick. Save us a lot of time. What's the relationship between watts, kilowatts, megawatts, and gigawatts? There's one number to keep in mind. Only one number. 1,000. Okay? Just 1,000. 1,000 watts equal 1 kilowatt. A kilo equals 1,000. Think kilograms. Think Scarface, right? 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. All right? 1 kilowatt is 1,000 watts. So we go from 1,000 watts equal 1 kilowatt. 1,000 kilowatts equal 1 megawatt. 1,000 megawatts equal 1 gigawatt. It's 1,000 every time. Let's say it again. 1,000 watts, 1 kilowatt, 1,000 kilowatts, 1 megawatt, 1,000 megawatts, 1 gigawatt. It's just 1,000 every time. That's it. Signing off. Peace. Hey, if you like this video, please smash that like button and hit subscribe. We would love to see you again. So take it easy. Peace.